Well, greetings everyone, and thank you all so much for taking the time to view this video and for being so diligent about reviewing all of the information that we've shared with you all over the past several months. My name is Larry Ward. I'm the Vice President for Learner Success and the Dean of Campus Life here at the college. And on behalf of the entire administration, the faculty and staff, we are really looking forward to the start of a new academic year. I'm pleased today to be joined by Capozzi, our new Dean of Students, and Ryan Travia, who was newly appointed as Associate Vice President for Student Success. Ryan and Caitlin play critical leadership roles in ensuring a safe, successful, inclusive, and a vibrant student experience at the college. Our purpose today is to discuss any recent changes, additions, and updates to our reopening plans and protocols, and to explain how it relates to expectations for the student experience. Specifically, we'll address an important operational adjustment for the first week of classes that was just announced by President Spinelli, and discuss what it means for those planning to be on campus. We'll also explain our symptoms reporting and testing protocols for students enrolled in hybrid face-to-face instruction. We'll review some of the most important and urgent behavioral expectations and policies intended to safeguard and mitigate risk in our community, and also help you prioritize what you need to know now in order to have a successful start to the academic year. Let me begin by discussing an operational change. With the return of a large number of students, faculty, and staff to Babson, safely managing the first few weeks of classes of the fall semester is absolutely essential to our ability successfully to reopen campus. 2 weeks ago, Governor Baker shared new requirements for travelers to Massachusetts, and these requirements impact most colleges and universities in the state. The return to campus that we have developed exceeds federal, state, and safety guidelines, and as a result, these new requirements do not substantially impact our established protocols. So we encourage students and families to continue with their travel plans. That said, yesterday, President Spinelli shared an important adjustment to the return plans, which requires that all students and faculty have 2 negative COVID tests prior to attending in-person hybrid classes. This protocol is designed to capture both initial asymptomatic cases as well as possible exposure during travel to Babson. As one community focused on protecting each other, we feel it's important to add an additional layer of community assurance. To ensure that these 2 tests for students and faculty can be conducted and results received prior to holding in-person classes, we will begin undergraduate classes in a fully online modality for the week of August 24th and start in-person hybrid learning the week of August 31st. The majority of undergraduate students will be moving in between August 20th and August 22nd. Therefore, the additional time also is needed for us to complete our student testing prior to the start of in-person learning. Importantly, graduate classes will remain as scheduled starting the week of August 31st with no change to modality. While all students will be fully remote during this week, faculty will teach from their classroom to become familiar with the new environment. Our faculty have been preparing extensively over the course of the summer to launch this semester with confidence and in our next normal. This shift will allow them to experience the classroom changes in person as we start the academic year. Now, let me shift a little bit to behavioral expectations, and I won't go into too much detail because I know Caitlin will spend time sharing her perspective with you all. But as background and over the course of the summer, particularly as this pandemic has accelerated in many parts of the country, Babson has worked diligently to develop a comprehensive return to campus plan designed to safeguard the community. In Massachusetts in particular, we paid very close attention and carefully adhered to Governor Baker and his conservative approach to making us one of the states with the lowest number of cases. In Massachusetts, residents regularly comply with mask requirements, physical distancing, and limits on gathering publicly and privately. Thus, Babson must do the same to remain open safely and successfully. To keep us together, we need you to take care of yourselves and each other. Every member of our campus community must be fully committed to our health and safety protocols. And I fully expect that our community will adhere to these established rules and protocols. Let me pause there and turn it over to Ryan, who will take us through some of the testing information as well as symptoms reporting. Ryan?
Thank you, Dean Ward, and welcome everyone. I'd like to start with elaborating on several of these central features to our health guidelines and safety protocols, specifically related to testing, symptom reporting, and contact tracing. Let's start with symptom reporting. Every day, before leaving your residence hall or your off-campus housing and heading to campus, all students will be required to complete COVID-19 symptom reporting. Once you log your symptoms, you'll receive a pass for on-campus participation, or you'll be asked to remain at home or in your on-campus residence hall and provided with additional instructions from there. You will receive a push notification reminder every morning to log those symptoms, and regardless of your schedule, we ask that you make sure that you report them prior to your first class or activity, but no later than noon every day. Again, all students are required to participate in symptom reporting every day, even if you're not on campus. This will help us to evaluate and track the overall health and well-being of all the members of our community, to enable us to make timely and important decisions about campus operations, and importantly, to ensure that all of our students are connected with appropriate resources wherever they may be. For testing, as Dean Ward said, all students must schedule a Babson COVID-19 test to be completed within their first 24 hours of being on campus. We've created a testing site located in the lower level of the Babson Executive Conference Center garage. The results are typically made available within 24 hours, and that second test will need to be scheduled within the first 3 to 5 days on campus. Thereafter, students and all community members will continue to be tested on a weekly basis throughout the semester. With respect to contact tracing, if a student tests positive, that initiates the contact tracing protocol led by the local Board of Health in conjunction with our trained contact tracers on campus. This is specific to a student's location, supported by information that you all provide to us through an interview from a trained contact tracer, as well as inputs into this digital contact tracing system that has been made available to you. That local Board of Health and the associated contact tracers will notify all those who have been identified as close contacts. This is a term that's been used a lot lately, and just to break it down, we are following the Center for Disease Control and Prevention definition. Close contacts are thereby defined as anyone who has been within 6 feet of contact for 15 minutes or longer, starting 2 days before illness onset, or for those who are asymptomatic 2 days prior to receiving that positive test, until the time that the patient is isolated. The public health evaluation of these close contacts are laboratory confirmed or probable presumptive COVID-19 may vary depending on the nature of the exposure setting, and the contact tracers will help you work through all of those details. Close contacts of those who test positive or presumptive positive for COVID-19 are recommended to self-quarantine for 14 days from the last exposure and follow all testing recommendations. So all of you received an email from me earlier this week talking about pre-arrival action items, and I'd just like to reiterate some of those pieces right now. First, all students must sign an attestation of compliance. For our undergraduate students, this must be done 72 to 48 hours prior to arriving on campus, and the form is accessible through the self-service section of your hub, and affirms that you have been able to self-quarantine at home for 14 days before coming to Babson's campus. The same holds true for graduate students, and you'll need to check your email for access to a Google form to a similar attestation. On these forms, the attestation also includes your ability to express that you've not experienced any of the following symptoms within 24 hours of signing the form. Those symptoms include fever or chills, a sore throat, cough, shortness of breath, or any other respiratory symptoms, muscle aches or pains, headache, fatigue, changes in taste or smell, nausea, vomiting, or diarrhea. Signing the attestation also affirms that you've not had close contact as previously defined with anybody who's tested positive for COVID-19. Importantly, if you're able to sign the attestation, you will only need to remain in self-quarantine until you receive your first negative test result. If you're unable or unwilling to sign the attestation, you will remain in self-quarantine until you have received 2 negative test results. During self-quarantine, residential students must remain in their assigned quarantine room and abide by all safety precautions, including wearing facial covering and maintaining appropriate physical distancing. This is with a few approved exceptions, including grab-and-go meals that will be available at all dining facilities. Of course, your testing appointments at the BECC garage, picking up your laptop and course materials. And the same holds true for our commuter students. They will need to self-quarantine at their off-campus residence and are not permitted to use any on-campus facilities with the exception of those errands that I just mentioned. Finally, please be sure to pack belongings for a 14-week stay through the fall semester on campus for our residential students, as opposed to the full year. Thank you.
Thanks, Ryan. Really appreciate you carefully walking us through that. Caitlin, would you take us through some of the behavioral expectations and what students can expect, particularly those who will be visiting campus or who will be in residence on campus?
Absolutely. Thank you, Larry. We are now on month 6 of this pandemic, and I know that many of us have gotten comfortable socializing with trusted friends, family, eating at restaurants, even traveling locally. As we approach our reopening to campus, we need all community members to get a little more uncomfortable with taking those kinds of calculated risks and recognize our shared responsibility to be as vigilant as possible in complying with policies and expectations that the college has laid out. Throughout the summer, we've shared updates regarding campus policies and procedures with students and families. It's important to us that students and families understand why we are approaching our return in this way, as our plan has been developed with extreme care and intentionality. We know that wearing a mask and physical distancing reduce the spread of COVID-19 significantly. While most of us are not used to wearing a mask all day long, it is our most effective measure to protecting ourselves and our community. In the hot weather, walking across campus is going to be so tempting to remove our masks even for just a few minutes. But we must remember that in doing so, we are dropping our greatest defense and bringing about a significant amount of risk. Faculty and staff will only be permitted to remove their masks in private, closed office spaces. And the only spaces that a student is permitted to remove their mask outside of a medical emergency is in their assigned residence hall room and household restroom. Students living in double occupancy rooms will find that their room allows for 6 feet of physical distance throughout the space and that the room is outfitted with the HEPA filter to assist with air purifications when masks are not worn. The community can expect to be addressed by a member of our ambassador team for community health and safety if they're observed not properly wearing a mask on campus. For those who repeat the behavior or blatantly dismiss the requirement, they can expect to be removed from the in-person experience and no longer permitted on campus. There are also strict policies in place regarding the residential experience this fall. There will be no visitors within the residence halls, including students who live in other Babson residence spaces. After receiving one negative test result, residents of a building may gather in common areas observing capacity limits that are clearly posted and may only enter their assigned residence hall rooms and suites. Our reasoning for this level of restriction is simple. Our residence halls are buildings with the highest capacity of people across campus and the only buildings where students can remove their masks in private bedrooms and assigned restrooms. We must have other mechanisms in place that promote student health and maintain a controlled environment as much as possible. Industrial hygienists have stressed with us that diligent observance of capacity within indoor settings is critical to mitigating the spread of the virus. For example, a laundry room may have washers and dryers for 6 different users, but no more than 2 people should physically be in the laundry room at any given time to ensure that all parties maintain appropriate distance at all times. These policies will remain in place for the first 2 weeks of classes at a minimum, but we will regularly evaluate the student visitors within the residence hall policy. If we maintain a low number of positive cases in our first 2 weeks and observe solid compliance with mask and physical distancing policies, we will be more likely to find opportunities for social interaction within residence halls. Large gatherings and crowds are our quickest way to cluster outbreaks, unmanageable numbers of COVID cases, and significant disruption during the semester. For those reasons, crowds of any kind are strictly prohibited. We define crowds as groups of more than 10 people gathered outside or more than 6 people indoors, regardless of physical distancing. I know that Stoop, the suites, and the towers have been central socializing areas for students, and they simply cannot be utilized in that way this fall. The McCullough roadway will be utilized for emergency vehicles only, and any gathering in that area will be dispersed immediately. Students who disregard these expectations will face disciplinary action and likely be removed from the in-person experience. In lieu of socializing within residence halls or on Stoop, social spaces for residential and commuter students have been carefully constructed across campus. We know that outdoor spaces are highly recommended for socializing and eating. For that reason, tents have been set up in Hollister parking lot and the Park Manor quad with appropriately distant chairs and tables for student use. Students can expect in-person programming to take place in these outdoor areas to allow for physical distancing and healthy circulation of air. The library, the Babson Commons, Reynolds will all still be open for student use. Additionally, we have arranged night auditorium and the Park Manor West Innovation Center as areas designated for student eating, studying, and socializing. Private space for personal meetings and virtual class engagement will be bookable for students across campus, including study rooms in the library. We will share more information about booking these spaces when students arrive on campus next week. We expect that Babson students who are engaging in any part of the in-person experience only to leave campus or their private residence if living off campus for essential errands, which we have identified as the pharmacy, grocery store, medical needs, and jobs or internships that cannot be done remotely. Additionally, we ask that all students participating in the on-campus experience limit visitors to off-campus residences and to campus. The more people we engage with and the more locations we visit, the greater the risk of exposure and infection within our community. I do not share any of these expectations lightly. It is going to be very challenging for us all to adapt to a fall semester so unlike what our new students imagined and our returning students remember. But if our shared goal is to maintain an in-person experience for the full duration of the fall semester, we must remain steadfast in prioritizing our health and safety by complying with these policies. It is truly our safest way forward together.
Thank you, Caitlin. So let me just pick up on a couple of things, and I want to reinforce a couple of things that Caitlin said and that were really inherent in Ryan's messaging as well. This is not simply about personal responsibility. It's about respecting one another and respecting your place in this community. And it's about being part of a collective effort to keep yourself and others well. We cannot just cross our fingers and hope for the best. So again, to be clear, if policies are violated, if you're not willing to commit to our shared expectations, you won't be allowed to be a part of the campus experience. Full stop. We will use our disciplinary process to its fullest extent in emphasizing this very point. A few other things before we close. One, I think it's important to note that Babson College prides itself on being a diverse community. And we have built ourselves on the very notion of inclusive excellence. As the fall semester begins, we affirm this commitment to inclusivity by welcoming new and returning students, whether they are remote or face-to-face learners. A pandemic that has impacted communities globally requires even more diligence to suspend our assumptions or about profiling people based on national origin, geography, or background. Again, we don't share any of these expectations lightly. Understand that this will be a different experience. I get it. I too live on campus and I work on campus. And I also believe in our shared goals of safely coming together and allowing students to make progress toward their academic and educational goals, not only for the fall term, but throughout the entire academic year. I believe that we can and will be successful. And I think we will be steadfast in prioritizing your health and safety needs. We'll be vigilant in supporting you within and beyond the classroom. And that also includes us moving swiftly and appropriately and addressing anyone who chooses not to comply. So we have shared a lot. Again, I am so grateful for your attention and your willingness to not only listen, but digest all this information. And I am truly excited to welcome our entire community back to Babson. Thank you so much. Continue to be well, travel safely, and we will see you soon. Cheers.